I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. I'm really excited for this show because it's our first time delving into the metaverse, Web3, and we've got two wonderful guests here at the same time. So that means I've got fewer questions to ask and twice as many good answers coming back at me. Stacy Quackenbush and Paige Dansinger. They're the co-founders of Dynamite Labs. They've done so much in the industry. You've already done so much in terms of metaverse, Web3, building worlds, consulting with companies, doing installations, advising. I could go on and on, right? We'll put the bios up on the site. You blow me away. I feel like I don't have enough smart questions for you because I'm a few years behind what you know. So thank you for joining the show. And I'll just get right into it. The media's perspective right now is Web3, the metaverse. It's not ready yet. We've seen a lot of financial losses for the company formerly known as Facebook, the company still known as Microsoft. They've tried to move in this direction, but they haven't figured it out. Is it because they're too big of a company to figure it out and it needs upstarts? It needs more savvy folks like yourself who are coming at this from the ground level. Why has this negative sentiment come into the industry? And I'll let Stacy answer first.
Yeah, a little bit of it has to do with misinformation and a lot of big news stories that propagate that. Additionally, we're looking at a time where that misinformation leads people to believe things like crypto are everything that Web3 has to offer. And I think that that has made people a little bit timid. And what we really need is something to spark mass market adoption. Paige and I have really spent a lot of time working with brands and working with educational institutions, museums, things of that nature to kind of transition away from things like websites and into metaverses. And when you start to see that transition where you can join a metaverse just from your browser, your computer's gonna take a photo of you, you're going to have an avatar instantaneously, and your wallet is just going to be a part of that mechanism when you log in. You're not going to have to bring anything else into the picture. You're going to see brands move away from websites, which are very two-dimensional and impersonal, to metaverses where you've got avatars engaging you, leading you on games, quests, and challenges, inviting you to have experiences that are beyond just purchasing. But these types of experiences will breed mass market adoption, brand loyalty, and meaningful ROI on a Web3 investment.
Paige, if the word isn't a website, right? Let's say a company normally would say, "Hey, we build a website when we first launch," and now, if I understand right, maybe even you two aren't building a website yet. What is the term to build? It's like I'm building a world. I'm building a metaverse. Like, what am I trying to build, and who am I hiring? What is the kind of professional I need to hire to build whatever this modern version of a website is?
Eric, you asked a great question. What we're building in the metaverse is often called a world.
A world,
Right?
okay.
So, a world. I have built over 200 worlds in the metaverse across different platforms, and some of them have been award winning museums and brands. We take a community and build a world around it, as well as when we have a brand, we help to create a whole community ecosystem that engages people 24/7 in the metaverse.
So you're a world designer, a world builder. Is that who I would need to hire in the future? Let's say I'm an entrepreneur and it's okay, forget your website. Remember back in the day it was you need a website, but then some people said I need social media first. I don't need a website, I need social media. Now it sounds like okay, I need to be in the metaverse. I need to be building worlds. So who am I hiring? Oh, someone like you, what do you call yourself? A world designer? Like it used to be I get a
I'm a
website
world
builder.
and a metaverse producer.
A metaverse producer. And then
That's correct.
help me figure
So
this out.
that's everything from building the world, from using in-world tools, for instance, in Horizon Worlds or an Odyssey platform or Engage or some of the other platforms that we're excited about, and using those native tools. And now new companies like Metaverse, Metaverse, and Viverse, and there's a proliferation of new platforms. And Dynamite Labs wants to be across all of them. So we're meeting the people truly where they are. And each platform is unique and special. Eventually, what we want to see in the metaverse is something called interoperability. That's when you're in one metaverse site and you can travel through to multiple spaces.
That brings up a question, right? Because the internet, we know we can reach everything off the internet, right? It's not vendor specific as opposed to, like, if I have an iPhone versus an Android, I have different apps that are available to me. But once I get on the internet, it doesn't matter what my device was. So when you say the word interoperability, is that what we're talking about? Is it no matter how I onboarded, everyone can reach everybody else in the metaverse, the way that it works with the World Wide Web and the internet?
Ultimately, we hope to see that happen in the future. And where we are now is on the beautiful road towards this.
Stacy, you mentioned talking to brands. You're working with a lot of brands. What is the current myths that you're trying to quell right now, or misconceptions when brands say, "Hey, I've heard of this Web3 thing. I've heard of this metaverse thing. I need to get there because I need to make sure I'm getting as many eyeballs as possible, as many dollars as possible, but I don't know what to do to get there." What are you trying to explain to them? Because they're saying, "I need to do it, but I'm nervous about it."
Yeah, really great question. I think the number one thing that we confront and we shift thinking around is this idea that the metaverse is a place for short-term marketing execution. You see a lot of entities doing like a drop, a release of a new product in the metaverse, and then they stop. They also think that because you build a metaverse, you don't have to do the other work. You still want to do social media. You still want to do AMAs in your Discord. You still want to do Twitter Spaces. You still want to have a big push so that your people, your target demographic shows up there. This idea that you're going to build on a really popular metaverse is going to bring people to you. It might, they may not stay. So for us, our desire is to shift brands into this thinking of building metaverses as long-term assets for the brand, not just short-term marketing plays. And that's a very different thing. I mean, you're looking at ways that your metaverse unfolds over time with different product releases, different marketing initiatives, with the idea of expanding your brand base. And we could do that in a variety of different ways, which include activities in 24/7 engagement avatars, but also things like sub-metaverses, interoperability, crossing different lines and building on different platforms simultaneously. So for us, it's a really big set of challenges that we look for the answers that are not only creative, but technological. And in doing so, not only Dynamic Labs, but every entity in this space is pioneering the space. And when you go to the conferences, when you go to different workshops, you meet people, and it's definitely a community that is very supportive and engaging, and it's unlike what I've experienced in the past.
You said the word sub metaverse. No, what is
Yeah.
that? What is
Yeah, so we
the little
love
the
the
tiny
metaverse.
metaverse?
So one of the things that's really interesting is how NFTs integrate into the metaverse. The NFTs for a really long time were these digital assets linked to chain, and you could, verify ownership, and you could resell them, and there's a lot of really fun things. But then they stopped there. For us, NFTs get really rich when you bring them to the metaverse because they can be gating mechanisms to the primary metaverse and also to sub metaverses. They can be mechanisms that are 3D objects that you integrate into metaverse. So for Paige and I, we did a movie metaverse for one of the biggest movies of all time, out
Can
of
you say
India.
which one?
Yeah, Vikram.
Okay.
And in doing so, in working on the sequel metaverse, we had pitched this idea of doing three-dimensional NFT objects that map to the weapons, tools, and accessories that the heroes of the film use. So when you go from passive viewer of the movie in the theater, you are then active, engaged fan in the environment with the characters using the same objects and tools. It changes everything. So we're really pioneering some exciting use cases for NFTs that make them creative assets in metaverses that unlock tools, games, and functions. So the sub metaverse is actually like another storyline that you get to explore because you've unlocked it, and it's a whole other world attached to the main world.
What language does someone need to learn how to code? Is this C++? Is this Python? Rails? There's so many languages out there that young developers are trying to figure out, where do I need to spend my time and my skills? What is the main language for metaverse?
So There's multiple languages,
Oh, don't tell me
excitingly,
that. There's too
right?
many.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, and they're each rich and exciting to learn. You can learn them. In fact, every platform offers tutorials and classes. You'd like to learn Unity, you would like to learn Unreal, you'd like to learn how to do block scripting and now text scripting in Horizon Worlds. You'd like to play with Roblox. You want to uh, download Minecraft and definitely make a new avatar and connect your wallet to Viveverse. The incredible opportunity there is right now is that it's like being in an entire art room, and there's multiple tools to play and dive into. And each one allows you to learn from um, either as a beginner and constantly challenge yourself to learn more.
You mentioned conferences. I think Stacy mentioned that when you're at the conferences, everybody's encouraging working together. This is a growth area, not so much a cutthroat competitive one, is my guess, because everyone's still early as a pioneer. But are these conferences in person? Are they in a ballroom that you have to fly to? Or are these all metaverse conferences? How do you two actually participate in a Web3 conference?
It's both really, and I think that we're seeing the IRL still being very much embraced and engaged. And a lot of the IRL conferences that we go to, Paige and I are hit up for solutions to be a hybrid model. Now, here's the thing that Paige and I always present is like, don't just do a hybrid model where you suddenly have a virtual metaverse play. Let that metaverse live on, build your community, have the assets, the resources, the speakers continue. There's no reason not to. And also any of the brand installations at a conference can live on as well, which creates great sponsorship opportunities. Once again, mapping to a meaningful ROI. We really love to build metaverses with a strong business model, not just something that is an expense, but like I said earlier, that becomes a long-term revenue driver and an asset.
What about we lost Paige for a second, but she'll pop back, right? This is the real world a little bit. I'll stick with you, Stacy. NFTs, we saw they went up big with the bubble, right? With the crypto boom, Bitcoin, NFTs, all these assets went up, and then all of a sudden they went down, right? You saw Bored Apes was a good example of that. Has that held back Web3 and metaverse development right now? Just watching the financial speculation on some of these riskier assets.
Yeah. I mean, it has held it back a little bit in the sense of mass market adoption. But as far as the people pioneering the space, I believe that all the strongest contenders have put their heads down, are really considering better, more substantial utility and use cases. So they're not going away because NFTs are based upon smart contracts, and smart contracts have the ability to revolutionize so many sectors across verticals and take archaic systems and mechanize them, making them more secure, faster, smarter, and safer than they had been previously. And that's going to take a while for mass market adoption, but we're seeing it happen everywhere.
Like we said earlier, companies they want to come in and do a short term thing, but they have to stay for the long run. It'd be like saying, "Hey, I want a short run website or short term social media." It doesn't make any sense, right? You
That's
need to
correct.
be there permanently. But as we're adding resources, right? This is time, money, effort. Just thinking about these things. If you're an executive, hey, I need to do something for the metaverse. What will get taken away, right? What will be just, hey, I need to do less with X, right? Like, what are the things that have to suffer because we just don't have more than 24 hours in a day? We don't have unlimited budget. So if metaverse takes some of that attention, what's going to lose a little bit?
Yeah, I don't see it as taking away. I see it as really truly being additive. I actually worked in the advertising space for a number of years, and it's more of a shifting around thinking. You want the latest model car with the better features, so the metaverse is really your next solution. You're also seeing people migrate in the way that they do social media. You have people moving into things like Discord and Reddit and a variety, AMAs and Discord stages. So you have things shifting, and this is a natural progression to meet your consumer base where they are. So I think what we're going to see are a lot of marketing dollars being shifted into this and not necessarily taking something away. It's the natural evolution of where your audience is and meeting them where they're at.
Is there a company that you look to, a big brand that we already know is a household brand that you would admire, that you would look to people and say, this is a brand that we should be emulating for their work in the metaverse?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, there's quite a few brands that are doing interesting things. I mean, Nike has really gone big, gone very strong, and they've got a considerable audience there as well. And what I really like about what they did is they did not do something that was photorealistic and expected. It was kind of fanciful, but strong enough that you could suspend disbelief. It has a strong economic driver in it. It has a reason to come back. So I think they were a really good example of that as well. I also think that the museum industry, believe it or not, a lesser known and lesser high profile, a lot of great traditional museums are taking a step into the metaverse to do things like expand their audience base. They really want the younger demographics because their patrons age out, but there are also ways that they can do things like tokenize antiquities to
Tokenize antiquities. Say
yes,
that.
it's
Tell
super
me about
exciting.
that.
So yeah, you can actually tokenize antiquities, and you buy a token that actually goes towards the preservation of that artifact. You could then drop to people's wallets BTS footage of the preservation of the artifact, things of that nature. Additionally, creating metaverse virtual exhibitions where you can go in and play with different objects of art that are historical, that are photorealistic, where you can have symposiums where you're dissecting a rare vase in real time and see the layers and the aging. There's so much that you can do. And then not to mention, if your assets are on blockchain, right, and the benefits of blockchain for doing things like tracking the collections and where the collections are being exhibited around the world in IRL. So like I said, a metaverse is typically thought of as a marketing execution, but truly you've got a front of house and back of house, the way I like to think about it. The front of house is where the consumer engaged, and the back of house can really support enterprise and enterprise growth and internal operations and support systems.
You mentioned museums, and I have little kids. They would not last in a museum for more than 3 minutes, right? They would be touching stuff, breaking, running around, making a lot of noise. And I think, oh, maybe this would be a way for them to get the education, get the experience, but in a way that is not damaging to other people or the actual antiquities that could be in the museum. Do you see a use case for something like this?
Absolutely. And I wish that Paige was here, and I'm going to brag about her significantly here. So, because Paige has actually had kids build metaverses. She has actually had them build the actual structure that houses the exhibition, take ownership over the exhibitions, and create works for them. She's had kids as young as 7 create exhibitions in the metaverse and talk about them. And when you hear their interviews, they are so articulate and so passionate. And a lot of these projects have been presented to like the World Health Organization. So she is a pioneer in that. And her and I have consistently been advocating for um, equal access and equality in the metaverse. We really believe that it's absolutely a tool for that. Every initiative that we put forth, there's some sort of educational component. There's a few different reasons for that, because it drives equity and equality, but it also allows the person who doesn't have a lot of knowledge of Web3 to get involved, and to get involved in a way where they feel empowered. So we're always looking for, how do we not only allow someone to visit a metaverse that we're building, but to take ownership over it, to actually contribute to it in a meaningful way. And there's a lot of ways to do that.
What is the difference between Web3 and metaverse?
Oh yeah, so great question. Web3 is really the advent of this new moment in technology and this new moment and the evolution of the internet. The metaverse is just one tool in the Web3 ecosystem. And, same thing with crypto, same thing with NFTs. And they are all interoperative, for lack of a better word. But Web3 is the big umbrella term for the ecosystem that surrounds that. And when you look at Web2 and you look at the internet of Web2, you're really looking at kind of an ego based existence. It was about, here I am, look how great I am, follow me. Where Web3 is really about community building. Like, let's bring our community together. Let's pioneer initiatives. Let's be loyal to the brands that we love, and let's contribute creatively. And so it's a very different feeling, and you feel the difference back again when you're at conferences and you're working with other professionals in this space.
Now, so you said Web3 and metaverse. What about now when you hear the phrase virtual reality, augmented reality? How do those two phrases fit into this ecosystem?
Yeah, I
They're
mean, virtual
so they're
reality.
so overused, right?
Yeah, they really are, and a lot of times they're used interchangeably. And virtual reality and the metaverse are really very closely tied and are kind of cousins of each other. Augmented reality is another really great tool for immersive experiences, and that's really what they're involved in. So I used to pioneer and build IRL entertainment complexes, and we would use 360 projection mapping, VR, AR, and AI for different executions within the same campus of entertainment based upon the artist behind it, the music that we were interfacing with it, and what would provide the best experience for the user. So, all really compelling ways to have immersive experiences depending upon what your end goal and objectives are.
The future podcast of Web3, is it going to look like this? Is it going to be where we're wearing headsets? There's other equipment. What does that? What does the Web3 podcast look like? How is it structured? What equipment do we need, and what's the end result there?
Well, I would invite you to start doing your podcast in our world. We could start doing it up and running very quickly.
What would I need? What would be the equipment I need for that?
Actually, just your presence. We could set it up instantaneously in our world. We could broadcast it out live. Your users would just have to log into the metaverse. So it's totally browser based, super easy, and we could set it up so that we're all sitting together, or we're sitting on a stage, and the rest of the viewers are there. So it's not super complicated. And back to what you were saying earlier, this is a moment where education is necessary. We're building and pioneering a new way of doing things that requires simple education to get the average user's involvement. And brands are a really great way to do that, because brands are so loyal. People are so loyal to their brands, and they are always looking for a way to engage.
It's mind blowing, the changes that we're starting to see in the space, because I think a lot of people, they were afraid of the equipment for a while, right? Oh, do I need goggles? Do I need this and that? You see a lot of Christmas commercials right now for MetaQuest, right? It's they have goggles and the little hand thing. It looks like the Nintendo Wii a little bit.
Yeah.
And oh, I can be a football player. I can be an action hero. I can do all that. Is that the end game here, or is that just the beginning of what will be the future here the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I don't see it as the beginning or the end. I mean, VR headsets and equipment are just another tool. It really goes back to mapping what the appropriate solution is for the challenge at hand. And whether it is a museum, a brand, an institution that needs an immersive virtual experience, teams like our team sit down and we work out what's the problem set, who is the consumer, what are the goals, what is the expected ROI, and then map that to the appropriate technology. So in my mind's eye, it all comes down to tools and choices.
How important will connectivity be? Right? All of this relies on a great connection, right? And is it 5G necessary for all of this? Are we going to need to see a global rollout of the absolute best internet connectivity so that everyone has those high speeds, low latencies, and large bandwidth to be able to do these really intensive calculations?
Yeah, really good question. So yes, it's helpful. But a lot of the metaverse platforms that we work with are really pioneering the space as far as mobile connectivity is concerned. 5G is really helpful for that. Blockchain streaming is really amazing. Like, once you put your content on chain and start to stream, it's low latency, it's high speed, it's low cost, and it's only getting started. It's really amazing. How many more entities have not transitioned there, but there aren't a lot of players in that space, and there's still a lot to learn. Like, I'm learning every day about it. I'm also learning about different use cases. So Yes, I think that it's important, but it's not going to be necessary because everyone who's evolving the space is actually working on solutions to that. So, for example, when we did the metaverse for Vikram, a large percentage of the fans of that movie were out of India. And not everyone in India has like a $5,000 gaming
Right.
computer. Most of
Right.
them don't. A lot of them are really, mobile based. So when you build a metaverse, you're building for the target demographic and everything associated with them, including where they are, what access to technology they have. And that's why being open to working on different platforms with different technologies is essential because you need to find the solution currently that maps to reaching the demographic. And that's why I was saying a little bit earlier in the conversation that there are a lot of brands that are going to the really popular metaverses to build, but not taking a moment to really think, does that map to my consumer base? Does my consumer base actually have the ability to access those
Right.
platforms? What is happening on those platforms that keeps the consumer engaged? And are the people there really my consumer base? So all of those questions are things that we work on. And this is the stuff that inspired us to create our own entity to combat these questions.
How does that work if you are just mobile based, right? We know in a lot of the developing world, people are just off a flip phone a lot of the times, not a smartphone, and that's their only internet. So
Yeah.
how do you get them into the metaverse when they don't have goggles, for example? They don't have all these other things. It's just I just have my phone and whatever
Yeah.
internet that is. How does that work?
Great question. And it's not working well at the moment. There are a lot of players in the space advocating that the platforms take on this challenge and take it on rapidly and advance it as fast as possible. Paige and I are doing that all the time with the different platforms that we work with, really incentivizing them, offering to help raise the capital needed to solve that question and to pioneer it because it is essential, it is necessary. And um, it also affects the way that you design because you have to really think about how what you're building will read on a mobile device. So yeah, it's that is one of the frontiers that needs some great solutions in this moment.
We've talked about film, we talked about museums. What are some other industries that will have immediate benefits? Or I'm thinking maybe education is one because you can learn in an immersive way. Better meetings, people say anything where people are gathering, right? Corporate meetings, music, concerts, those are ones that come to me, but they seem stereotypical. Are there other industries that you see a big opportunity right away for them to take advantage of this?
Yeah, real estate is massive.
Ooh,
Real
true.
estate for a variety of different ways. I mean, the tokenization of real estate assets cannot be understated. I recently was on a panel at the Web3 Expo in Las Vegas where we talked about this substantially. But the tokenization of real estate assets for mass market adoption really depends upon the metaverse. And there are a few different use cases that exist. You've got the ability to purchase residential real estate via the metaverse and the tokenization of those assets. You've got the ability to invest as a small player now, but via the tokenization of real estate developments in major real estate developments like casinos and malls. And all of that can be facilitated through the metaverse. But additionally, we've worked on some use cases over the past year where you have these very strong real estate developers building residential complexes in mass. And they have, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of units with a lot of tenants. And what they really want is a metaverse that enhances and drives and it augments the lifestyle created by the real estate brand. So we've been pioneering that space as well. Additionally, robotics and industry, another great use case because you need to be able to in real time troubleshoot the robots that are in the factories around the world with the client who owns them. So you could jump into the metaverse, see in real time the robots functioning in the actual factories and troubleshooting what's going on. In that same metaverse, you can train people how to utilize the robots that they own. You can train new sales teams on the new features and functionality of the robots that are forthcoming. You can see how this applies across many different manufacturing sectors. So these are the kinds of problems that Paige and I are always working on and solving for our clients.
When I hear real estate, I think about the stories that came up where, oh, you can buy real estate in the metaverse, right? Like it's not real, it's just somebody's digital real estate. What's your view on that? Do you think that has true financial value, like real dollars should get spent on that. Because from what I understood, your original discussion about real estate was talking about real estate in the real world, like an actual physical, like maybe I want to go buy a house in a different state, but I can't go there, but I can experience it. I'm thinking about that. But what's your view on this digital real estate? Would you buy that? Would you spend your dollars on that?
Yeah, I think, yes, sure. Why not? I mean, I love real estate in all forms, but here's the thing, just like you would buy a home in any neighborhood, you need to research the community that you're investing in. Does it have your values? Does it have the services and facilities that you would want? Does it have events? Does it have the potential for brands to buy in? What is the trajectory of it? In the same way that you would map the potential for an IRL piece of real estate to a gain in equity, you would want to do the same diligence when you buy virtually.
So fascinating. I feel like I have so much to learn here, right? It's a world that is changing so rapidly. And I appreciate you taking the time to explain a little bit of it for me, because it makes it seem more accessible. I think before this conversation, it felt like a big question mark. How does this work? Who's going to use it? But I appreciate your common sense answers here. And this is how brands can take advantage and how people can use it, right? In a safe way that is totally accessible. So thank you so much. I know Paige, we had her in and out a little bit. We'll have to get, like you said, that connectivity is so key, right? Whether it's Web3 or here on just an old school podcast. But thank you both of you for the time, Stacy. Appreciate you walking me through all of this today. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And hope to have you in our metaverse soon.
Definitely. Now that I know, right now that I know that it's a place to be. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.